Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are Group 7 and we are here to present System Analysis and Design. I know we are the last group, but I'm certainly sure we are not the least. Most of us are still in holiday mood, but we do hope that you spare us a few attention and learn together with us. So let's go over and do a quick introduction on what is this topic all about. Steve Jobs once mentioned, design is not just what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. It's all about functionality. You cannot say it's a good car with having a crappy engine, but if V8 twin turbo is definitely a head turning. So, to cut the story short, let's go ahead. What is a system? It's a set of detailed methods, procedures, and routines established or formulation to carry out specific activity, perform a duty, or solve a problem. The term analysis and synthesis stem from Greek meaning to take apart and to put together. It's also a problem solving technique that breaks down the system into its component pieces for the purpose of the studying how well those component parts work and interact to accomplish their purpose. So what is system design then? It's the process of defining the architecture, components, modules, interfaces, and data for a system to satisfy specified requirements. In layman lingo, we can say that it's a system designer, an architect, a fashion designer. So for our topic, what the hell is system analyst then? Everyone has their own definition of what it is, and I don't know which one to believe. Well, as far as I know, the role of the system analyst is, of course, to analyze, studies the existing system in detail. They also act as a designer, as previously mentioned, proposes new procedures for information flow, reporting, and computer processing. They're also technical writer, documenting the results of the design effort. Different versions may be needed for ordinary users from that of the programmers who will implement the system. For those big shot, they act as a consultant, advises options available to users, and indicating the implications of each option. Of course, they're also a team member, behavioral scientist. Analyst plays a key role in information system development projects. They must also understand how to apply technology to solve business problems. Analysts may serve as a change agent who identify the organizational improvement. Of course, you cannot be a system analyst if you don't have this characteristic. First, you must be a problem solver. You must be a good communicator. Without communication, we cannot materialize something and we cannot work together with other people. And as mentioned, you should have strong personal and professional ethics. And they must be self disciplined and self motivated. So much for this theoretical thing. What is it like to be in the real world? I know theories you can all learn in YouTube, you can Google it, and we have our textbook for that matter. So, one example that I can share to most of you, which is close to my heart, is the Singapore healthcare IT system. Most of the software and application are developed in-house due to specific and privacy issues. And if you factor in cost as well, due to some specificity, it might require a huge sum of money. So the landscape is first you have the stakeholder or the system owner or the client. And for this particular example, you have this organization as a stakeholder, and they have their champion users or informatics officer who will gather all the information and actually be a bridge to those technical guys. And of course, since these people are more into workflow and healthcare, they actually engage a government agency, which is called IHIST, who actually manage the project, oversee it, and they also provide several system analysts. They will advise you regarding security, accessibility, and confidentiality. And since you are building something or a software, of course you need a developer. And I know some of the IT guys out there might heard of this company, NCS, which is a Singapore-grown company. There are system developer, database manager, and etc. All of this institution working together will result or be able to create an information system. So, how do they do it? Each system development has its own life cycle, just like everything else. So, what is SDLC or System Development Life Cycle? It's the evolutionary process that is followed in implementing a computer-based information system or subsystem. So, since we say it's a life cycle, so these are the stages of the system development. Wow. As said in one of the healthcare data-driven conferences that I attended, it's wrong to say that a picture paints 1,000 words. As a matter of fact, the West got it wrong. Confucius say a picture paints 10,000 words. By just looking at it, it pretty much sums up everything. So, preliminary investigation and planning. So, it's all about system objectives, scope of the problem. Of course, you must have a firm boundaries on what is the scope. Otherwise, it will be a never-ending loop. You need to also gather information and to plan your project, as well as feasibility study, which might include technical, economic, operational, and schedule aspect. Each project must work on a certain scope, on a certain timeline, on an approved budget. Otherwise, your project will not come into fruition. Next is requirement analysis. Basically, it's just the functional requirement documents created. In requirement analysis, functional requirements documents are created, meaning on the first step, we already know what is the problem, what we wanted to solve. Now, on requirement analysis is how we're going to solve it. For an instance, you want to register all your patient. I might need a patient identifier, national identification card, SSS number, or a specific identification number local to that hospital. On the system design, it now explains fully everything on how do you plan to actualize and materialize it. Now, it's the real thing, development. What we thought that it's the bulk of everything. So in development, actual code are written, testing procedure are defined. So, in short, the developers are now at work. Next up is integration and testing. This rigorous testing, error, bugs, and interoperability issues resolved. Wow, that's a big word. Interoperability. Interoperability means that our system is able to work hand in hand together in respect to other system as well. That's why we have SIT, which we call system integration. Like previously we mentioned, project got specific scope. And if the project gets bigger, it takes time for it to be developed. And sometimes if it becomes a monster, it's basically too big to fail and it becomes a problem. So some of the strategy is to build actually a different software that will integrate to one another, maybe through a socket, web service, or API or application processing interface. This system integration test ensure that all of the communication between different software are in check. Next is UAT or user acceptance test. User will actually test, see whether it fits their workflow, their functional requirements, and so on and so forth. Implementation. Finally, so it's actually the deployment into the production environment. We opt to deploy to pilot server if available to minimize impact. Or people are wanted to be sure of something, so they deploy their pilot server if everything is fine, and then they will actually deploy it to the main server. Next is operation and maintenance. So this is actually the training for the different user, documentation for reference, which we may be found useful if ever moving forward the system will be assessed and approved that there will be changes on it, enhancement. Of course, when you build a system, like I mentioned, you have a certain scope, firm boundaries. So if any changes on that, you can park it to another project to enhance the system. Maybe a budget is a constraint as well at that point in time. Next, of course, there will be evaluation if the stakeholders are satisfied. I think that's all, folks. For more detailed report, you may refer to the links below or the other videos to find more about it. Thank you.